Hello everyone, I am Dr. Ramesh Gomasa, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at SR University, Warangal. So in the previous lecture, we discussed about types of pollutions like air pollution and water pollution. So the major sources and its causes and effects on living organisms and other organisms, right? So in this today's lecture, we will discuss major global environmental issues like global warming, greenhouse gases, acid rain, and ozone layer depletion. So you can see from this slide, so environment problems are increasing day by day. So because of industrialization and urbanization, and human activities like fossil fuel combustion and increasing the population growth. So environmental degradation is occurring in a global scale. So these environmental problems which are affecting climatic systems, ecosystems, biodiversity, agriculture and water resources, and which is are directly affecting on human health, right? So human activities which are significantly altering the atmosphere and disturbing the natural environmental balance, right? So understanding these global environmental issues is extremely important because which are directly affecting sustainable development and future of life on earth, right? So these will discuss in the today's lecture. The topics are global warming, greenhouse effect, acid rain, and ozone layer depletion. So the global environment issues are environmental problems which are affect the entire planet and which requires international cooperation for their control and management, right? So unlike local pollutions problems like local pollution problems, global environmental issues which cross national boundaries, right? Which is a global way. So which affects all countries. Like for example, you can see greenhouse gases which are released in one country, which are also contributed to the global warming in a worldwide. So therefore, environmental protection which requires collective international efforts, right? So example you can see climate change, global warming, ozone layer depletion, acid rain, biodiversity loss, which are all also affecting on global warming in a worldwide, right? Which is affecting on environment in terms of worldwide. So which are global environment issues. So coming to the global warming, so naturally, Earth maintains a balanced temperature, right? Naturally, Earth maintains balanced temperature. So because of these greenhouse effects, however, human activities which are increasing the greenhouse gas concentration, so which is crossing the normal limits, so that the excessive heat which is trapping in the environment, right? So that the gradual increasing the Earth's temperature because of these greenhouse gases, so that the temperature increases, the global warming coming to the picture in the environment. So global warming is considered as one of the most serious environmental challenges because it affects climate systems, ecosystem and human society in a global way, right? So which is affecting on global way. So the important greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, nitrogen oxide and chlorofluorocarbons. So greenhouse gas effect, you can see greenhouse effect. So the greenhouse effect, which is a natural process that helps to maintain its temperature, which is suitable for every life, for any life in the earth, right? So greenhouse effect, which is a natural process, which helps the maintaining the earth temperature, which is suitable for life, right? So you can see the process sunlight which is reaches to the earth. Earth will absorb the solar energy and which emit the heat in terms of radiation. So these greenhouse gases which trap this heat so that the temperature in the environment will be increases because of this trapping, because of greenhouse gases are trapping the heat, right? So the temperature in the environment is increases, right? So without natural greenhouse effect, earth would be become extremely cold, right? And life would be not exist. So therefore, the greenhouse effect itself, it is not harmful, but the problem because the excessive greenhouse gases which are increasing the atmosphere, which will trap the temperature, so that the temperature will be increases in Earth, so that global warming coming to the picture, right? So enhanced greenhouse effect. The enhanced greenhouse effect refers to excessive heat trapping, in the environment, which is caused because of greenhouse gases, because of these human activities, right? So excessive heat which are trapped into the environment because of the higher amount of greenhouse gases which are available in the environment because of human activities. So as greenhouse gases increases, which releases more heat, right? The more heat becomes trapped in the atmosphere, so which leads to rise in the global temperature, right? Greenhouse gases increases, so the trap of heat will be increases in the atmosphere, so which leads to rise in the global temperature. So this process enhance the greenhouse effect, so which is main cause for modern global warming and climate change, right? So this is the main issue in terms of global level, right? So human activities which are responsible for enhanced greenhouse effect because of burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial emissions, vehicle emissions, agricultural activities. So that the results in increasing the global atmospheric temperature, right? So that the temperature will be increased in the atmosphere, leads to effect on human health. So there are different greenhouse gases which are contributes differently in terms of global warming. So you can see from this table, carbon dioxide, which is the most significant greenhouse gas because it releases very large quantities through the fossil fuel combustion and deforestation, right? So that which is a major global warming factor. And the next one is methane, which is present in the smaller quantities. Okay, methane, which is present in the atmosphere in a smaller quantities, so it traps much more heat compared to the carbon dioxide. Okay, even though it is available in the small quantity, it traps more heat compared to the carbon dioxide. And next one, nitrous oxide, which are mainly comes from agriculture, fertilizers, and industrial activities, right? Agriculture, fertilizers, and industrial activities. So the last one is related to the chlorofluorocarbons like CFCs. So which are synthetic gases which are used in the refrigerators and aerosols. So these gases contributes both the global warming as well as ozone layer depletion. Okay, so you can see the greenhouse gases and their sources and how it is affect on environment. So the sources of greenhouse gases are thermal power plants, industries, automobiles, deforestation, agriculture activities, and waste decomposition. Okay, so greenhouse gases which are released from the multiple human activities. So thermal power plants because of the burning of coal, petroleum products, so which releases huge amount of carbon dioxide. And deforestation which reduces number of tree available, right? Number of trees available in the environment, so that it will absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, so which will be less, right? Agriculture also contributes significantly in terms of methane and nitrous oxide emissions, right? So the main observation from this slide is industrialization, which contributes a significant amount of greenhouse gas emission in the atmosphere. You can see And next one is causes of global warming. Causes of global warming. So the major causes of global warming are which are directly related to the human made activities, right? Human made activities like excessive fossil fuel consumption in terms of transportation, electricity generation, industries, etc., right? And deforestation, increasing the deforestation, which leads to increase of carbon dioxide because the availability of trees in the environment is less. And next one is urbanization and industrialization also. So urbanization and industrialization which are increases, so the energy consumption also increases and population also increases, right, because of the more opportunities. So which are all major cause for pollution, right? The urbanization and industrialization increases the energy consumption as well as pollution because of population growth increases, which requires food, energy, transportation and infrastructure, which are leading to greater greenhouse gas emissions, right? So that human activities are major contributed for global warming. So effects of global warming. So the major environmental effects are rise in global temperature, glacier melting, sea level rise, extreme weather events, droughts and floods, and results in loss of biodiversity. And it is also effect on humans like in terms of food insecurity, water scarcity and health problems, right? So that global warming which threatens the environmental, economic and social stability in a worldwide. Climate change. So because of long-term changes in the temperature, rainfall and wind patterns, which are all contributed for changes in the climatic condition, so that it is called as climate change. Okay. So these changes which disturb the ecosystems, agriculture, water availability and biodiversity, right? So climate change also increases frequency and intensity of natural disasters, right? So the main causes for the climate change are greenhouse gas emissions, global warming, human activities, right? So the effects are irregular rainfall, cyclones, heat waves and ecosystem disturbance. So melting of glaciers and sea level rise, so which is one of the most visible impacts of global warming, right? So rising atmospheric temperature which causes polar ice caps and mountain glacier to melt rapidly. As glacier melt, sea level will be rise, right? So many coastal cities and islands which are highly vulnerable because of the increasing the sea level, right? So the major causes because of increasing the global temperature and rise in the melting, especially polar ice melting. And effects are coastal flooding, submergence of low-lying regions, loss of coastal ecosystem, displacement of populations, and the important concern related to the small island nations which are highly vulnerable because of melting of glaciers and sea level rise. So you can see the impacts on biodiversity. So climate change significantly affects the biodiversity and ecosystem. So temperature rise and habitat change which are forcefully because of many species forcefully migrate from one place to other place because of climate change. So some species cannot adapt successfully because so that it will be extinct. So biodiversity loss which weakens the ecosystem stability and ecological resilience also. So the effects on ecosystem are habitat destruction, specimen migration from one place to other place, resulting extinction risk and related to the coral bleaching, and which disturb the food chain. So the key point from the slide, climate change which threatens the global biodiversity and ecological balance. So what are the control measures required for global warming? So the primary control measures are in terms of renewable energy adoption, afforestation, energy conservation, reducing the fossil fuel consumption, public transportation, and sustainable development practices. Okay, so the main objectives is to reduce greenhouse gas emission to promote sustainable development, right? So that international efforts are also required, like Paris Agreement and Kyoto Protocol. So acid rain. So acid rain means rainfall containing acidic substances like sulfuric acid and nitric acid. So these rains forms when sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide react with the atmospheric moisture. So acid rain is one of the important environmental effects of air pollution, right? So the main causes are sulfuric dioxide, like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide. So the major sources of acid rain are thermal power plant industries and vehicle emissions. So the formation of acid rain involves several atmospheric chemical reactions, right? The process which includes sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, which are released into the atmosphere. So these gases react with the oxygen and water vapor. So sulfuric acid and nitric acids are formed acidic compounds which are returned to the air through the precipitation. So both the wet deposition and dry deposition which contribute to environmental damage. Right. So the types of acid rain are wet deposition and dry deposition. Right. So what are the effects of acid rain? So you can see acid rain causes serious environmental and structural damage like soil acidification which damages the forest, water body acidification which harms to aquatic organisms, and structural level damage you can see in terms of corrosion of buildings and damage of monuments. Like you can see example damage to Taj Mahal because of acid rain. So control measures for acid rain. So acid rain can be controlled mainly by reducing the sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide emissions, right? So industrial pollution control technologies which plays a important role in reducing the acid rain formation, right? So use of lower sulfur levels, reducing the industrial emissions, and install of scrubbers in industries, vehicle emission control, and use of renewable energy so that we can control acid rain. So the key point from this slide is reduction of acid rain because of reduction of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide emission in the atmosphere. Our next topic is ozone layer. Ozone layer is the region in the stratosphere which contains higher concentration of ozone gases, right? So this layer is extremely important because it absorbs harmful ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Okay, so the ozone layer which is in the stratosphere, so which is having higher concentration of ozone gases. So this layer is important because it contains harmful UV radiation which is released from the sun. So the ozone layer which act as its natural protective shield, right? So the importance of the ozone layer is which absorb harmful ultraviolet radiation, which prevents living organisms, which protects living organisms from UV damage, right? So you can see the location, which is approximately 13 to 15 to 35 kilometers above from the Earth's surface. Right? You can see from this image. So the ozone layer, which is between the troposphere and stratosphere, and how the ultraviolet radiations which are entered from sun to earth. Ozone layer depletion. Ozone layer depletion means that reduction in ozone concentration, reduction in ozone concentration in the stratosphere. So the main cause is release of ozone depletion substances like chlorofluorocarbons. When these chemicals reach the stratosphere, they break down ozone molecules and reducing the ozone concentration. Right. So leading to the depletion of ozone layer. Formation of ozone hole. The ozone hole which forms mainly over the Antarctica. Right. So the process occurs chlorofluorocarbon molecules which reach the stratosphere, and these are the ultraviolet radiation which breaks the which break the stratosphere. So chlorine atoms which are released. So these chlorine react with the ozone molecules which discharge continuously. So chlorine atom which can destroy the thousands of ozone molecules. So this process leads to thinning of ozone layer. So this thinning of ozone layer is called as ozone hole. Okay, so the process is very simple. So first chlorofluorocarbons which reach the stratosphere, and because of UV radiation which breaks the chlorofluorocarbon molecules. So like which are react in this stratosphere, so which distract the ozone layer molecules. So resulting thinning of ozone layer. So the major regions affecting the ozone hole depletion are Antarctica. Effects of ozone layer depletion. Ozone layer depletion increases because of ultraviolet radiation which are reaching the Earth's surface. Right. So marine food chains which are especially vulnerable because phytoplankton which forms the base of aquatic ecosystem, right? So because of depletion of ozone layer, so which is also affecting our aquatic ecosystems, right? And related to the effect on human health, you can see in terms of skin cancer and cataracts, immune related disease, and in terms of environmental effects, damage to the crops and harm to marine environmental bodies like phytoplankton, and which is disturbed to the ecosystem, right? So the key point from the slide: UV radiation becomes more intense because of depletion of ozone layer. And how to control this ozone layer depletion, and what are the measures we need to take. So ozone layer depletion which can be controllable through international cooperation and replacement of harmful chemicals. So by avoiding the chlorofluorocarbons and use of eco-friendly refrigerators like eco-friendly materials, and by following international agreements and standards and environmental policies, and public awareness and sustainable industrial practices. So these are required to control ozone layer depletion, right? Example, you can see international agreement like Montreal Protocol. So Montreal Protocol, which is considered as one of the most successful international environment agreement because it significantly reduces ozone depletion substances in a global way. International environmental agreements. So Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement, Montreal Protocol. So the global environmental problems requires international cooperation, right? So international collaboration is essential because environmental problems which affect all countries in a global way. So these agreements are important. So the objectives of these agreements are reducing the greenhouse gas emission and protect the ozone layer and controlling the global environmental problems. Sustainable solutions for global environmental issues. So what are the sustainable approaches which are required to avoid these kind of environmental problems? So sustainable solution which are essential for controlling global environmental problems like acid rain, ozone layer depletion, etc. So sustainable development which are aims to reduce environmental damage and support economic growth and human welfare. Right. So the ultimate aim of sustainable development is to control environmental damage and support economic growth and human welfare. Right. So the sustainable approaches are adapt to the renewable energy by instead of depending on conventional energy resources. If we go for renewable energy sources, we can control climatic change and environmental issues and green buildings, afforestation, waste reduction, sustainable transportation, pollution control technologies like carbon capture technologies. So by following these kind of sustainable approaches, we can control the pollution and we can also control environmental issues in a local way as well as a global way, so that we can protect our environment, ecosystem, biodiversity, and we can achieve our sustainability. Right. So the key focus is sustainability is essential for protecting our environment. Right. So by following these kind of sustainable approaches, we can achieve global environmental issues can be reduced. Right. We can achieve sustainability. So the summary of this lecture. In this lecture, we discuss about global warming, right? Global warming and greenhouse gas emissions, and different types of greenhouse gases in the environment, right? With the help of different layers in the environment, also we discuss it, like in terms of troposphere and stratosphere, etc. So greenhouse gases which trap the heat, so the temperature in the air will be increased, right? So that the temperature in the air is increases, which is affecting our environment, like in terms of climatic change. So one of the issue is acid rain because of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, so which are major contributors for the acid rain, so which are damage the ecosystems and structures also. Ecosystems in terms of environment and structures in terms of corrosion and damage to the aquatic systems also, right? In terms of ecosystem and in terms of structural systems, and ozone layers which protect the earth from UV radiations, right? So which will protect the earth from ultraviolet radiation. So sun will release ultraviolet radiation, but the ozone will control the enter of whatever the UV radiations from the sun to earth, right? But human activities which are contributing global environmental issues, right? Like burning and using of excessive chemicals in the environment, so because of industrialization, urbanization, so these kind of activities which are releasing major contributors for the global environmental issues, right? So that the temperature will be increasing and it is subjected to the pollution in terms of air, water and soil, and leading to increasing the temperature, global warming, and in terms of pollution, and it is directly affecting environmental ecosystems, biodiversity, and human health also. right? It is affecting on human health as well as environmental system also, right? So that we require sustainable practices so we can control our pollution and we can protect our environment so that we can achieve sustainability, right? Thank you.